You know what I find interesting about hotel marketing? Almost nobody thinks they're bad at it. You can ask any GM, any owner, and they'll tell you that their agency is fine. The campaigns are running, the reports are coming in, the meetings are happening, but yet direct bookings are flat. OTA dependency keeps on creeping in, and every month there's another invoice that's a little bit hard to justify. So here's the thing, I've come to believe that years in the industry, I've noticed that the problem usually isn't in effort because the reality is that everybody's trying. The problem is that I think a lot of the owners have never been taught what good actually looks like. So when they can't tell the difference between an agency that's working and an agency that's just looking busy, of course that's kind of problematic. So that's what today is all about. I'm gonna give you 7 questions, not to be difficult in meetings, because each one is going to give you a genuine signal. You want to listen, you want to ask it, and you'll know within about 30 seconds whether a person sitting across the table understands hospitality or just understands marketing. And those are two very different things. My name is Daniel Laurean, and I am the growth consultant for Resaco. And before this, I actually spent years inside one of the largest luxury resort groups in the world, working across reservations, sales, quality assurance, revenue. And I got the chance to sit in a lot of rooms with a lot of guests. And the gap between what hotels need and what most agencies deliver is actually quite remarkable. That's something that I've noticed. 7 questions, let's get into it. Number one, do you report on impressions or direct revenue? Now, I want you to ask your agency or any agency that you may be considering to show you a sample monthly report, just a sample, and see what's on the first page. If the headline metric is impressions, reach, or engagement rate, that's useful information, not about your marketing, but more about the agency. And I'll explain why. I think there's something that sometimes nobody tells you whenever you're going to be signing a retainer, that impressions are free to generate. I could generate you 1 million impressions tomorrow. I can just run a terrible ad to the wrong people, and boom, you will actually have 1 million impressions. But it means absolutely nothing. The only question that matters is this: how much direct booking revenue did your marketing produce this month? I'm not talking about total revenue, not OTA revenue, direct, because we all know that OTA revenue is revenue that you share with them. Direct revenue is the revenue that you get to keep. And whenever I say direct, I mean properly attributed, not just traffic went up. A real agency should be able to sit down with you and say, we spent 3,000 euros in Google hotel ads. We tracked 42,000 in direct bookings from that spend. That's a 14 times return, and that's the conversation that you should be having. I think everything else, the graphs, the charts, the colorful dashboards, that's decoration. You cannot pay your housekeeping staff with click through rate, right? So think of it this way: before you sign anything, ask to see that sample report. If page one doesn't show direct booking revenue and return on ad spend, you already know what you need to know. Simple as that. Question number two: what is your philosophy on OTA dependency? Now, I really like this question because it usually has two wrong answers. And a lot of the agencies give you one or the other, sometimes without even realizing it. Wrong answer number one: we'll drive more traffic to your website. Sounds good, right? But it actually means nothing. More traffic from where? Doing what? If they're going to be bidding on your brand name without a proper strategy, they might actually be just intercepting guests who were already going to be booking directly with you and charging you for it. And I've seen that happen more times than I'd like, to be honest. Wrong answer number two. What get you off the OTAs completely? I understand the instinct, I really do, but this is not a realistic goal. Any agency that promises it either doesn't understand the industry or is telling you what you want to hear. Booking Holdings spent over $6 billion on marketing just last year. You're not outspending them. And honestly, you shouldn't want to. OTAs are extraordinary at one thing, and that is introducing your property to guests who have never heard of you. A couple in Tokyo planning their first trip to Helsinki will find you on booking.com, and that's fine. That's the system working. The question is what happens next? The philosophy I look for is what I call shift the ratio. You want to let the OTA acquire the guest once, then your job or the job of your agency is to make sure that the second booking comes direct. That means zero commissions. The guest already knows you, they have already liked you, and you already have their data. The acquisition cost on that second booking should be almost next to nothing. And here's why it matters at scale. Say your average nightly rate is 200 euros and booking.com takes 18%. That's 36 euros per night gone. On a 3 night stay, that's over 100 euros. On 500 OTA bookings per year, and that's not a lot for a lot of properties, you're handing over 50,000 euros annually just in commissions each year. So, shifting the ratio, even 20% of those guests to direct on their second visit, that's about a 10,000 euros back from people who already love your hotel. I want you to ask your agency, what is your actual strategy for converting OTA guests into direct bookers? A specific answer means they've thought about it. A vague answer means they haven't at all. Question number 3. How do you handle seasonality? Now, usually this is a question that catches a lot of agencies off guard because on paper, everyone says they understand seasonality. But in practice, what they do is that they'll set a monthly budget in January and let it run all the way to December, which in hospitality is essentially burning money with extra steps. Let me give you a concrete example because I think it makes more sense. Say you run a ski resort in Lapland. Peak season is December through March. Full occupancy, premium rates, the whole thing. So the intuitive answer is spend most of your marketing budget in winter. That's when the demand is the highest. But here's the thing, by December, the decision is already been made. Imagine a family booking Christmas week in Lapland. Made that decision somewhere in September. They were scrolling through Instagram in August, Googling ski resorts in September, comparing options by October. By the time December arrives, they've already booked either yours or with somebody else. If your marketing wasn't loud enough during that particular window, you were never in the conversation. You cannot retrofit your way into booking that's already been made. That is what I think of as the dreaming phase problem. I think a lot of agencies optimize for people who are ready to book. Smart agencies go after people who are just starting to dream. That's where the leverage is. And then, on the other hand, when February is fully booked, what should you be spending on paid acquisition? I would say close to nothing. Not 1 year trying to fill a bed that is already full. Instead, you shift the budget to upselling. Premium rooms, packages, experiences like checkouts. You're not acquiring guests anymore. You're maximizing the value of guests who are already coming. There's two modes: shoulder season aggression, fill the gaps before they actually become a problem; peak season yielding, stop acquisition, start upselling. The filter here is simple. Ask the agency how they adjust budget based on your occupancy forecast. If they don't ask for that forecast before the answer, they don't actually work this way. Question number 4. Do you market to guests or to leads? Now, this one is more about a mindset rather than tactics. And I think it exposes agencies that come from an e commerce or B2B and have never made the mental shift to hospitality. Obviously, in most industries, a lead is a lead, right? Someone fills in a form, you call them, you close them. It's a linear process and quite a clean funnel. It's done. However, in hospitality, a guest is not a lead. They're a person who is going to sleep in your building. They're going to be eating your food. They're going to be interacting with your staff. And then they're going to go home and tell people about it. So the experience here is a product. And the relationship with that guest before, during, and after their stay is the most valuable marketing asset you will ever have. And that's something that needs to be understood. Now, what that means practically is this: an agency thinking in leads will optimize for booking, get the clicks, get the conversion, move on. That's acquisition thinking. And it's not wrong, but it's just incomplete. An agency thinking in guests asks different questions. What is the pre arrival experience like? Are you sending communications that make the guests genuinely excited before they even pack? What are the in state touch points? Are you capturing feedback and building loyalty while they're actually there? And think about post stay. What is the strategy for bringing that guest back directly? This is what I call the full guest life cycle. Most agencies only play in the acquisition phase. The real money, obviously, it's always in the retention. A guest who comes back directly twice a year, zero acquisition cost, zero commission, is worth more than 3 new OTA guests combined. Think about it. So once again, I want you to ask your agency, what does your post-stay re-engagement strategy look like? What's your guest retention funnel? The answer tells you whether they think in transactions or in relationships. Question number 5. How do you work with rate parity constraints? Rate parity. It's two words that make any revenue manager uncomfortable, and it's for a good reason. The situation most hotels are in is this: OTA contracts include a clause that says you cannot publicly offer a lower rate on your direct channel than what's on Booking.com or Expedia, which sounds on the surface like it makes direct booking incentives quite impossible. But think of it this way: a naive agency will ignore this completely and just runs ads. A mediocre agency tries to hide discounts in places OTAs can't easily see. Now, both approaches create a risk. Either you're violating contract terms or you're playing whack a mole with a platform that has more lawyers than you actually do. So, a sophisticated agency understands something important. Rate parity restricts price, it doesn't restrict value. You can't offer a cheaper rate. You absolutely can offer a way better experience for the same rate. Free breakfast, flexible cancellations, an exclusive welcome package. The guest isn't paying less, they're actually getting more. And that's fundamentally different conversation, and it actually works. This is what I'd call the direct booking value stack. You match OTA rate, then you layer value on top of it. The guest has a genuine reason to book direct without you ever even touching the price. So, and then there's the next level. You want to be using your CRM to identify past OTA guests and targeting them with member rates that aren't publicly available, that aren't publicly listed. OTAs can't compete with the rate they cannot see. Now, the question to ask is, how do you create direct booking incentives within rate parity constraints? If they haven't thought about this, you'll just know immediately. Question number 6: what is your relationship with booking engine technology? Now, your booking engine technology is the most consequential piece of technology in your business. It is the exact moment whether a person who wants to stay at your hotel either becomes a guest or becomes somebody else's guest. Something I've noticed that obviously a lot of hotels are running in technology from a decade ago that nobody has even touched since the installation. Something that I see constantly is a beautiful website, strong SEO, well targeted ads, compelling offering. The guests will click through and then they land on a booking engine that's slow, it's not mobile optimized, it'll ask for too many details, it times out, or it just feels like it was designed by someone who has never booked a hotel online. The guest abandons and then they end up back on booking.com and books there instead. So, and then all that marketing spend gone. And the marketing agency reports a good click through rate on the campaign because technically the click did happen. Now, a great agency doesn't just drive traffic. They take responsibility for the full conversion path. They want to know your booking engine abandonment rate. They want to know where guests are dropping off in the funnel. They want to know whether mobile checkout is converting at the same rate as desktop. And if not, why not? The agencies I respect have opinions about booking engine platforms. They know which ones convert and they know which ones don't. They push back when a client's on the system that's actually killing the results because they understand that their ad spend is only as valuable as the experience it leads to. And you want to ask your agency, what booking engine platforms do you work with and what conversion rates do you typically see on those platforms? If they can give you benchmarks, they're measuring this. If they can't, they're obviously not. Question number 7: can you show me a case study with actual EBITDA impact? So, this is the last question, and in some ways, perhaps one of the most important ones, because this is where the whole conversation either lands or is just going to fall apart. I think anyone can show you a case study with vanity metrics, right? Instagram following up 3%, Instagram following up 300%, website traffic doubled, engagement through the roof. Fantastic. The question is, did the owner make money? What you want to see is this: starting direct booking percentage, ending direct booking percentage, starting cost of acquisition per booking, ending cost of acquisition, revenue impact in euros, not in percentages, not in graphs, in euros. Over the years, this is what I've learned about this industry. A lot of the hotels that are winning are not necessarily the ones with the biggest marketing budgets or the most sophisticated marketing campaigns. They're actually the ones who know the numbers. They know what it costs them to acquire a direct guest versus an OTA guest. They know their commissions. They know their commissions spent down to the cent, and they actually have a partner who is as obsessed with those numbers as they are. If an agency has done the real work that actually moved the needle, they'll have these numbers. They're proud of them. They'll lead with them, and they don't need to be asked twice. If they can't produce a case study with hard revenue metrics, either They haven't done the work or they haven't been measuring what actually matters. Either way, that should tell you everything. So, 7 questions. Things you should be looking for: revenue over vanity metrics, a real philosophy on OTAs, seasonality intelligence that goes beyond setting a calendar reminder, guest life cycle thinking instead of lead generation, rate parity strategy that actually works, booking engine ownership, and proof that lives in euros, not in slide decks. And honestly, what I think is a genuinely good marketing agency is not that hard to find if you know what you look for. The problem is that most hotels have never been given the tools to look. They get sold on a pitch, they stay out of the inner, and 3 years later, they're still wondering why direct bookings haven't moved at all. But look, now you have the questions. Use them. I actually wrote a full article. I'll be linking below. Everything we just talked about today is there, written out properly. Read it before your next agency conversation. It's free and it might save you a meaningful amount of money. And if you're watching this because something isn't working in your current setup, that feeling is usually right. We offer a free audit at Resaco. We look at your numbers, tell you honestly where the gaps are, and give you a clear picture of what is actually possible. No pitch, no pressure, just the clear data. Link is below. See you next time.